Okay, so welcome to this session that's talking about long documents in Word. I mean, I assume that all of you are working on something like a dissertation or a final year project, so hopefully there'll be things covered in this which is going to be useful for you. I'll be going into one of our web pages to start with to show you where some resources are that you can use to help you with the session, and I'll also then be going obviously into Word and look at a few documents from there. So initially, I'm going to show you this web page here. This may be the one that you use to book onto the session, but it's part of our Quick Start online events guide. And underneath the section where it says using the technology is the page for managing longer documents in Word. And there's two documents down here that you may find useful. Across under this section where it says workshop resources, I've got one that's called Essentials for Working with Long Documents in Word, and another one that's called Managing Longer Pieces of Work exercise file. The first one I'll be going into in a moment, and that kind of just gives you some of the key things that you'll need to think about and to use within Word as part of creating your long document. And the second one is a much more detailed document. It's basically going to be like a user guide for you to use that gives you more detail on how to do the various things I'll be talking about. But also you can use that document to actually have a practice with. It's quite a long document itself, so that will allow you to play around and to try out some of the things I'm going to be talking about. So just click on either of those links and that will download the document to your computer, and you can then open it and work on it. So if I come into Word now, okay, I've got a document across here, and this one's the one that's called Essentials for Working with Long Documents. So I'm going to take you through the various steps in this document and have a look at the kind of things it's talking about. The single most important thing that you need to do when you're beginning to work on your document and to create it is to think about how you kind of set up your heading styles and what you use to create your heading styles. Now, one of the things that people tend to do very often is they will type in some text and they will then perhaps make that look how they want it to look. So they might make it like this text here is in red and it's in a kind of bold, a bit of bold font, so it stands out as being an actual heading. And so one of the most common ways of doing that is to actually just select the text and add the styles to it. But that isn't the right way that you need to do it to allow to take advantage of the various settings there are in Word that will allow you to do things more easily, like a table of contents. What you need to do is make sure you're actually using these heading styles up here. So across in Word, under the Styles tab, we have this section here called Styles, and we've got Heading Styles 1 and Heading Styles 2. So rather, if I just created a new document now, and I typed in something, so let's just create a brand new document. I was going to create myself some random text within this. So there's just some random text in Word. Okay, if I wanted to have a heading at the top here, type properly. So what I'll say, one of the ways you could make that a heading is just by using the fields up here and changing it. But what you need to do is to make sure you use these heading styles that are built into Word here. So this is going to be my main heading, and I've applied a heading style 1. And that will be the heading you'd apply to things like your chapter heading, something like that. So here I've got a subheading. And that one will have a heading style 2 on it. And I can kind of come down here and I might have another heading 2. And I'll select that and I'll apply the heading style 2. So applying your heading styles and your subheading styles in that way is the single most important thing that you must do when you're working on your long document. Because this will allow you to take advantage of the various things within Word that's important to create things like a table of contents. Now, one of the reasons that people very often don't use the inbuilt heading styles is because of the style that Microsoft has given them. So not many people want their heading style to be in the font here, Calibri light, size 16 and this kind of pale blue colour. So the other thing that you can do, and particularly you would need to do this if you've been given any particular guidance on what your fonts should be like, or what the kind of style should be like for your project or for your document. So what you need to do now is to actually change the way that heading looks, so it actually matches either the way that you want it to look or the way that you've been told it should look. So in this case, I am now going to do, there's two ways you can do this. I'll show the first way, it's a simpler way, and that way is just to go through and to then literally do as people will often do to create their headings, is to use the formatting features across here to change the way that looks. So I've now made my heading in the Arial font, size 16. It's not bold, it's just normal, and it's got a black colour on it. So that's how my heading style looks now. If I come back up here to where the heading styles definition is, you can see by where I'm pointing to now, as far as words concerned, a heading 1 is still done in Calibri and the pale blue font. So I know what to change it so that it now knows they want to make the heading style 1s look like the heading that I've created down here. If I right click inside here, I have the option to update heading 1 to match selection. And now, as well as it looking with my formatting here, I've now got the definition up here of that heading 1 changed to how I want it to be. So the next time I came down and put in another main heading, so I'm going to put main heading 2 and select it and apply the heading 1 style. It's now taken the look that I've defined for it. So that's applying your heading style, and a simple way of changing the way that the font, that the style, sorry, is actually defined. The second way you can do that is to go into the heading style up here, to right click and to choose this modify option. This will allow me to make a lot more changes to the way that particular style has been created. So to start with, initially, I was going to go in and do it in a similar way to how I did it before. So I'm going to change the heading style there. I'm going to make it size 14, and I'm going to make it black. I'm also now going to have a look under this drop down here where it says format, and I'm going to choose paragraph. And there's a lot of settings underneath here. You may not need to do all of them, but some of them can be quite useful. So here I can say I want a little bit of space after it. So afterwards, if I ask it to put in 6 points afterwards, okay, it's going to give me a slight little bit of a gap between my heading and the next section there. So that's one thing I can do on there. There's also some options under the line and page breaks. So I'll come back and I'll show you a good tip you might want to use with your main heading 1s for that. But for the moment, I'm just going to say yes and apply that heading style there and say yes. Okay, so now my subheadings here and here have changed in their layout. If I came back to the main heading, and again I'm going to go back into this modify section here and choose the paragraph again and line and page breaks. I'm now going to ask it, whenever I put in a new main heading, a new heading 1, my chapter heading, I wanted to put an automatic page break before that heading. So if I now say OK to that and OK to that, and I scroll down, you'll see that where I'd now created my main heading 2, it's gone onto a new page for me automatically. So that can be quite a good tip, say when you're working on your headings, which are going to be things like chapters. Other things you can have a look at are the actual the main text font here. So all text in Word by default has a style, and that style is the one up here called normal. And normal text has Arial and 11. So it has Calibri and 11. I'm going to modify that. So I am going to ask it now to have Arial as a font. And again, I'm going to have a little look underneath the paragraph. And the indent and spacing section. So here I could say, okay, I might want it to be 1.5 line spacing automatically, and I want it to have a little bit of a space after each paragraph. So if I say OK to that and OK to that, that's now changed all the general text in my document. So that if I'm told I need to have it as 1.5 line spacing, it's done that for me automatically. Now, as we're working on these styles, the styles we've been working on so far are only going to be in this document. So you can see that here we've changed all the various definitions. If I came back and I was to open another new document, you can see that all the definitions of the styles here are still as they were for Microsoft's defaults. If I did want the headings to change, so if I kind of came back and I'm just going to have a look again at this heading 2 and choose modify. If I wanted to, I could make all my new documents that I create have the styles that I've just modified, and if I did that, I would need to just check the little box here that says any new documents based on this template. I would say just be careful before you do that, because it's not easy to then get back to the normal one that you want to. So those are the key things to do with working on heading styles and modifying your heading styles. So if I come back into my document that was this essentials one, so that kind of covers this first section here about using styles to format text and headings, and then modifying the styles. So that's kind of gone through those various options there. I'll just come back into Teams. Has anybody got any questions at the moment about any of that? Is there anything anyone's popped into the chat? No? Okay, great. So the next thing to have a look at is another advantage to using some of the styles in Word. I'm going to open this long documents one now. Once you apply your heading styles, the other thing that appears sometimes automatically is the thing here called the navigation pane. And I'm saying once you begin adding heading styles, Word will sometimes open this for you automatically. You'll see this is across here at the side, and it gives you all the heading styles it's found in your document. It kind of gives you like a working table of contents for you to navigate through your document. So it will show you you can kind of cascade these up or down, so I can look at just my main headings. If I wanted to, I could go straight the way through to that part of my document by clicking on this heading in the navigation pane. That'll work my way through my document. So it's quite good to be able to have an overview of the pages like that. You also have under the Pages tab, the second one across, it gives you what's basically like a little miniature print preview view of your documents. And I'll come back and I'll show you how this can be useful a little bit later. But again, it kind of helps you to pick out where you might have things like big white spaces, where you have page breaks where you don't need to have them, things like that. So using the navigation page of the page view helps you kind of to tidy up some things within your document. So the navigation pane, as I say, is essentially a working table of contents for you. But what you'll need to do in your main document is to actually create a table of contents for real. And having used the heading styles, we're now going to be able to create our table of contents in a couple of clicks. So I've got a placeholder here for my table of contents. Okay, and I have seen students in the past who've gone through and they've created these manually, and it takes a long time and it's never going to be accurate. So underneath the tab here that says references, okay, you need to select that one. And the first option across here in this little group is the table of contents option. So I've got one click to select references, a click to select table of contents, and then I have two options, either number 1 or number 2. And the only difference in these is actually whether it calls your table of contents, or whether it calls it contents. I tend to use the one that's called table of contents, but there's not any real reason why you can choose one over the other. So if I click inside there, okay, and scroll back up, hopefully you can now see it's gone through the whole of this document, which is 52 pages long, and it's found all the heading 1s, which are the ones in bold here. It's found heading 2s, introduction, essentials, appearance and layout, and this one has some heading style 3s, and that's giving me the heading style 3s underneath here. So that whole document, I've got table of contents created for it in literally 3 clicks. So this will allow me, again, it'll kind of tell me the pages I can navigate through this document. I know I've got some extra sections in here. So If I come down to my documents, I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I can then click inside that document. It navigates me to that part of the document. Now, one thing to be aware of when you're adding your table of contents is that it doesn't dynamically update. So I'm coming to this part of the document, and I haven't actually put all my heading styles in here. So if I scroll back up, this bit of text here needs to have a heading style 1 on it. This section needs to have a heading style 2 on it. And then I'll do a few more. That one's going to be another heading style 2. I'll just do one more. Okay, there's a few more in here that I could have done as well. So I've now put some more headings in my document. I come up to the top again and look at that table of contents that I created. Scroll back up. You'll see it hasn't got a main heading in it that's called that's to do with the table of contents. So I need to now update this table of contents so it finds that extra text that I've just added in there. So if I click inside it, I've got a little button at the top here that says Update Table. When I click on that, I have 2 options. The first one is to update the page numbers only, and that's what you would do as one of the last things you would do when you've been working on your documents, when all your structure is created and you want to just make sure that everything's on the correct page. But because I've changed the structure of it, I've added some new headings in there, I need to update the entire table. So I need to click on that one, and then I need to select OK. And it's now changed the table of contents for me, and this section down here, table of contents, where I added those new headings, have now been added into my table of contents. So just remember to always make sure that you do that last updating if you've made any changes to your document, either in the text or its structure. And I'd say that would be the last thing you do before you kind of totally finalise your document, just to make sure it is absolutely up to date. But it's quick and simple and very easy to create that and to make any modifications to it. So just come back and let's have a look at what I got in this Essentials document. So that kind of covers the table of contents. I've just gone through there and using the navigation pane. I'll just pause there for a moment, see if anyone's got any kind of questions about anything I've covered so far. No? Okay. So the next thing to have a look at is when you might need to add some graphics. Need to do that. If you need to add some graphics into your document. So you might have some diagrams such as photographs, tables of data, graphs, all those kinds of things. And you may also be asked as part of your specification for your dissertation to create what's going to be called a table of figures or table of tables for those. There are some inbuilt features inside Word that allow you to do that automatically as well. So I'll go into that other large document now and I'll show you how you can start to add what it calls captions, and how you can then create yourself a table of those captions to add at the front of your document. So I'm going to swap back into this long documents file. I'm going to come down into it and I'll find somewhere where I've got some of these screenshots. I'm just going to choose this as a place where I'm going to add in my captions. So again, I'm working on this references tab, and the section across here is where it says captions. So underneath this little diagram, this little screenshot here, I'm going to insert a caption. So I just click on the button there, and it'll default to giving that a name of figure 1. So what it is, I'm going to call it screenshot 1. It's a screenshot of font. So I'll type in what I want it to be called, and I'll say OK. Now, just to note, in this particular documents, the style that's attached to figure 1 has been modified itself. So when you do it for yourself, you'll probably find it comes on in a smaller font and possibly in italic text. But again, you can modify that style so it looks as you want it to look. I'm now going to come through and find another place where I want to have a caption. So I want to have a caption underneath this particular diagram here. So now it's going to be screen figure 2. So, okay. So now I've got figure 1 and figure 2. But say I've decided, or as I've begun to work on my documents, I find that actually I needed to have a diagram further up in the document. So I come up here, and I'm now obviously earlier on in my document for my figure. If I click on Insert Caption here, Word now knows that this figure is earlier on in my document than the previous ones, so it's going to keep. It's going to now call this one figure 1. So if I say OK to that, if I scroll further down, I've now got this one here as figure 2, and the one that was further on again will be figure 3. So it would go through if need be, and it would renumber all of the figures from the point onwards where you added a new one partway through the document. So you could work your way through, and you can add all of those in. And now I'm going to come underneath my table of contents. I'm going to ask it to create me the list of figures. In this case, I do need to type in a heading for it. It won't do that for me automatically. So again, under the References tab and under the Captions group, I've got the option here for inserting a table of figures. So if I select that option and ask it just to use the figures here and just say OK, it's gone through and it's found those 3 figures for me, and it's given me the figure number and the caption that I typed in there against that. So that's all work for your figures. You also had some tables of data, and you may decide that you wanted to have those sort of separate. I haven't got any tables in here, but I'm going to use one of my figures as an example of a table instead. So if I come down, okay, so I'm going to pretend that this here is going to actually be a table. So I'm going to insert a caption again, but this time I'm going to ask it to change the label from being figure into table. So I've got a caption there for that. And I'll just pretend this is going to be another one. So I'm going to insert a caption again. It's coming on with the label for the table. Caption for that. Okay, and again I would go through the documents and I would do all the various tables of data that I needed to, and I would come underneath where I've got my list of figures. Again, I just type in a title for it. This time again I'm going to insert a table of figures. And it's going to use me the table caption this time, so I can say OK, and I've now got those listed separately. So I can have all the captions and all those, and I can use those to go through. If I needed to, I could update those, but in this case, it's not inside the table itself. The option to update that is up here on the ribbon under the Update Table button across there. So again, if you made any changes to those figures, you added some new ones in, changed what the actual captions against them were, and you need to make sure you did an update on that before you totally finalised the document. Okay, has anybody got any questions about any of that? Okay, so far. Good. So we've covered dealing with captions of figures and tables. The next thing to have a look at is when we might need to change the orientation of some of the pages inside the document. Now, you may not always need to do this, but it can be useful if you have something like a large diagram or a table of data that will read a lot better in landscape rather than portrait. Sometimes data tables can be quite squashed if you've got a lot of information to get into them, or you might have, say, a large graph or diagram that would look better if it was laid out into landscape rather than portrait. So what you need to do this is to use what's called some section breaks. So let's come back into our large documents again. And then come through, there's a section, there's a part of my document. So I'm going to use this diagram here as an example of how I can do this. I'm going to get this particular diagram to be on a page on its own. So the first thing I need to do is directly above where I wanted to change, I wanted to insert a section break. Excuse me. So select the layout tab. Underneath breaks, I want to choose a section break on the next page. Okay. And then underneath the diagram itself, I'm going to then ask it to put me another section break in. Now you can't necessarily see much has happened, but I'm going to click on back onto the home tab and turn on this little show hide option here. And that will show me that just above it here, I've got this little double dotted line. If I just move that down to underneath it, you can see that that says a section break next page. I'm just going to take one of those. And underneath the diagram here, I've got a section break on the next page. So now if I make sure that my cursor is inside this section here where I want to change the way that it's laid out, and choose the layout tab and orientation landscape. I've now got my page above that's in portrait, my page here with the large graph or diagram on it, and then it goes back into being portrait. So I can now make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm going to stretch it down. If I make it too big though, you'll see that what can happen is that actually I've now ended up with a blank page underneath it because it's actually too big. So I just need to resize that down. So just be careful when you're doing that. And this is where that navigation page view, if I can get back to the navigation pane, and I look on the pages button I was talking about before. Okay. So now I've actually managed to create another blank page above it again because I made that a little bit too big, so I can just shrink that down again. Again, it's managed to do that. So use this navigation pane of the pages view just to make sure that you haven't got anywhere with blank pages in there where you've got extra page breaks or extra section breaks and things like that. And also use under the home tab this little show and hide button as well. It can look a little bit odd when you first turn it on because you start to see all the everywhere where you've got carriage returns, and it'll also show you where you've got sort of space and things like that. But it can be really useful just to allow you to see where you've got those various formatting things. So particularly if your document's not behaving itself as you expect it to, and you wonder why you've got a big white space or something like that. Maybe you've hit return too many times, or you've got a page break in the wrong place. So I'll say adding those kind of section breaks are important, and just make sure that you do actually close the section breaks after the thing you want to make into the landscape. Otherwise, it will carry on and have landscape for the rest of your documents. Okay. Anybody have any questions about any of that? So the last thing that I generally go through on this section is to think about where the page numberings work. And this is really particular thinking about how you might need to have different types of page numbers throughout your dissertation. So most of the time, you in normal essays and things, you'll probably just have page numbers that just go through in the normal way and go through from page 1 to whatever. But generally, you're going to need things to be done a little bit differently when you're working on a large document like your dissertation. It may be that you need to have some pages at the beginning where you don't have any page numbers. By default, you can have just one page number, one page with no page number on it. But you may have a title page, you may have an abstract, you may have an acknowledgement, you may have a few other things where you don't actually want to have page numbers on those particular pages. And to do that, you're going to need to do a little bit more to make that work properly. You may also have things like an appendix, and you may be told to use Roman numerals for the appendices or in that first section. So again, you're going to need to do something slightly differently if you want those page numbers to work in that way. So to make those page numbers work differently, you need to use some section breaks again. So this is what we're going to be having a look at doing that. Okay. So I'm going to come back to this this large document again. Okay, I'll just close that. And I'm going to set it up so that I'm going to have no page numbers on the first of this first section. So let's go up to up to this section here, up to page 8. I'm going to have it without any page numbers, and then towards the end I'm going to change that and have it with some Roman numerals. This can be a little bit fiddly to make it work properly, but hopefully we'll get this working. So under the layout tab, I'm going to put in another one of these section breaks. Okay. So I've got a section break. So I just turn on that option there so you can see we've got a section break there. And then I'm going to come that way towards the end and get to a page. Let's go to page. From page 45 onwards, I'm going to put a section break. I'll put a section break in here. Okay, I'll just change my page number. So, breaks. Next page. Okay. So I've now got my various section breaks put into my document. Date where I was going to start changing things. So now I'm wanting to look inside the footers of these various sections. So you can see at the moment I'm in here and I've now got a footer in section 1. Okay. And then I come down and on page 8 I'm still in the footer of section 1. But now I come down to here, I'm in section 2. So a couple of things I need to do within these sections. First of all, I need to say, well, I don't want a different first page in this section. If you have that little box here ticked, that means that Word won't put a number on the first page of that section. But in this case, I want all pages in this section to either have numbers or not to have numbers. So I'm going to just click that, and then underneath page number, I'm going to ask it in this case, I want it to remove the page numbers. Okay. Is it going to call me? It's just not behaving itself for me properly. So I'm going to delete the page number in that section 1, but actually it's now deleted it for me in section 2, and that's because by default it will link the sections together. So the first thing I need to do is to tell it to break this same as previous link. So now under section 2 I can format some page numbers. and I can have it in the format 1, 2, 3. I don't want to continue from the previous section because it can start on page 9. I wanted to start on page 1. Okay, and insert it to the page, and I've now got a page 1. Page. There should be. Well, let me just come back and do that one again. Sorry, this one's deciding not to behave themselves. As I say, this can be a little bit fiddly to make sure that these behave themselves properly. So I'm in section 1, section 2. First page. Previous. Okay, so let's go through that again. I want the number at the bottom of the page. I want the format page numbers to start at 1. And hopefully that's going to behave itself now. Yeah, okay. So now I need to come down towards the bottom. I think on page 45, wasn't it? Something like that. Okay. So here's where I was going to have my other section break. I wanted to start from this point onwards. I wanted to have a different formatted page number. So I'm going to format the page numbers. I'm going to ask it at this stage to do them in little Roman numerals, and I'm going to start from 1. Okay. Turn off that formatting just so hopefully you'll be able to see that a little bit better. Just come down. Okay, so now here I've got some page numbering with little Roman numerals because I've asked that section to have the Roman numerals. So it can be a little bit fiddly to get these set up properly. The key things to remember are within your sections is to make sure under the head and footer tools that you don't have it linked to the previous section. On other page numbers, you choose the page the formatting page numbers, and then choose what you wanted to start from. So starting again from either from 1 or from the normal numbering there. Okay. Does anybody have any questions of anything that I've gone through, or anything that you hoped that I might have covered that I haven't covered that you think you're going to need to do within your dissertations? Okay. Do you want to turn your microphone on, Hayley, and ask a question? Or you just
you said at the beginning that you've obviously recorded this. Where will this be? Because I'm just worrying that I won't remember absolutely everything that you're going through.
Yeah, it'll save it onto something called Microsoft Stream. So I can make it available. I'll send everyone who's been on this call. I'll send you all a link when it's up there. Okay, and you need to just get it onto that site and share it. So I'll send you all the link for that. Any of you who are the students of, I think is it Fiona for education?
Yeah.
She's going to make it available for you as well. Because I know I was going to do a session for her students. I didn't manage to fit one in, so I said I would record this particular session for that. So yeah, I can make that available for you. I say either direct linking or by your Blackboard site if your member of staff asks for a copy of it.
Thank you. It just mean that I can go back in each section and it can guide me as I need it to. That will be useful.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I won't turn the recording off now, actually, because I said I could probably should have turned it off before I asked the questions. I'll turn it off now, because I think I've gone through all I needed to, but if needed, I can start it again. So I'll just stop it.